All right, good morning, Oregon. Are we ready? Thank you, Maria, for that wonderful introduction. I stand here in the shadow of Maria Renee with her inconvenient truths. We're going to take it up a notch and make them uncomfortable. So it is my honor to introduce the Democratic and Republican leaders for the Oregon Senate and House Representatives. Almost, I guess. We have limited time, so I'll keep my introductions to these remarkable leaders brief. Senate Democratic leader, Senator Kayse Jama, is the first former refugee to serve in the Oregon Senate and represents East Portland, Damascus, and Boring, Oregon, making it one of the most diverse districts in the state. He became Democratic leader just this last month. First, maybe you missed that part. Senate Republican leader, Senator Daniel Bonham, lives in the Dalles and represents rural Clackamas County and parts of Wasco, Hood River, and East Multnomah counties. As a small business owner, he has a strong commitment to a growing Oregon's economy. Let's welcome Senator Bonham. House Democratic leader and seventh-generation Oregonian, Representative Ben Bowman, represents Tigard, Metzger, and South Beaverton. He was elected in 2022 as one of the youngest members of the legislature, focusing on education, healthcare, and transportation policy. Please welcome Representative Bowman. And House Republican leader, Representative Drazan, is a lifelong Oregonian and served in the Oregon House of Representatives from 2019 to 2022. Of course, ran for governor in the middle there somewhere, with a campaign focused on mental health, drug addiction, and Oregon's cost of living. She was re-elected to the House in November and will represent Canby, Estacada, and Sandy in Clackamas County. Welcome, Representative Drazan. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And let's get this uncomfortable conversation going. Okay, we have heard a lot this morning about our world-class ambitions for our economy in semiconductors, clean technology, food and beverage, and the southern Willamette Valley. This is surely more we could add to that list, including footwear and sports apparel, advanced manufacturing, and dental equipment, and more. I wanted to I'm adding something that Duncan doesn't know about, so there you go. And I'm quoting another dedicated Oregonian, Angela Williams, by saying, by many measures, the state's business climate is becoming increasingly less healthy. We highlight three problems to the state we must address to restore economic prosperity and competitiveness. Oregon is simply an expensive state in which to live and operate a business. Second, Oregon creates unnecessary obstacles to opportunity and success. And third, Oregon's political culture undervalues the state's private sector. You know, we all, many of the leaders you've heard today are out there building community constantly, all the time. We work tirelessly for that effort. So as we listen to these opportunities, panelists, in the words of the great poet Eminem, what excites you? What opportunities are you going to take? How do you see opportunities like these benefiting your constituents? We'll start with Representative Bowman.
It's a good question. And so there's a lot of things that we heard that I think are really exciting this morning. And underpinning the four categories that we heard about, I think, are some core values that should be part of our state's economic development strategy. First, and I think importantly, economic prosperity has to be felt across the whole state and not just in the Portland metro area. And I say that as a proud Washington County resident, the economic engine of the state. But we are living in the legacy of transition from a predominantly natural resources economy to a very different economy, and much of the state has never fully been brought into the new economy that we've built. And I like that a lot of what we heard would benefit the state broadly and not just in a concentrated area. Second, There's no contradiction, and there should be no contradiction, between economic development strategies that are good for business and good for working people. I think that was a consistent theme. And then finally, we have unique strengths as a state. We have a lot that we should be proud of. And what we heard from the previous presentations was we should lean into those strengths. And by leaning into those strengths, we can perform at an even higher level. I also want to acknowledge there were a lot of challenges that were brought up. Lack of available shovel-ready industrial land, our tax environment, workforce challenges, regulatory environment, lack of infrastructure. These are all real problems, and they were developed over a period of decades and will take time to address, but we should work on them. And the final thing I'll leave with, Jim Mattis has a great quote: "Cynicism is cowardice," and I think in this moment we all need to be optimistic and work towards the future we want to see.
Thank you. Same question, Representative Drazan.
So that was a long enough answer that I don't recall precisely what the question was, so thank you, Representative Bowman. But I just want to say this about where we stand right now in our economy. You know, when you look at any of the indicators that we continue to rely on as a state for our prosperity, we know that we're struggling. Intel has been all over the news lately, and their future is relevant for our future. We know that populations have declined. They're stabilizing potentially, but they're certainly stabilizing at a lower level than we have experienced in the last 20 years. We know that the kids coming up through K-12 education, that we just don't have as many as we used to. All of these structural foundations create uncertainty in our economy moving forward. And in those categories, I have real concerns that this conversation today that we're having is critical to the future of our state, because we need to be responsive to the listing that OBI ran through, where we talk about the regulatory environment, the tax burden, and whether or not we don't in fact have a political environment that is oppositional to a growing economy. And so I'm committed to ensuring that when we go into this next upcoming legislative session, as I stand up for my constituents and try to figure out how they can fit in with this economy, that my focus on their behalf is going to be reversing some of those broad trends that are creating that level of uncertainty and concern. Because if we don't have a strong economy, we know we can't have those strong public services. If we don't have a strong economy, we know we're going to get buried in PERS costs. Like, I could go on, and the ties between the dependence we have on all of you in this room as business leaders and the necessity that we have as public policy makers to be able to meet the needs of our constituents. But first and foremost, we cannot continue to raise taxes that we have in the past. We must reduce the regulatory burden. We must be able to work with business, not against business. And we certainly need to make it clear that we want companies to come to Oregon. We want companies to grow in Oregon and to be strong to support the future of our state.
Thank you, thank you. Senator Jama, to you. Jama.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. I think in terms of, for me, the best resource that Oregon has is its own people. And we have to really make American dream available for all Oregonians, regardless of where they reside in the state. Today, this morning, I heard a lot of things, and those things really goes around a few items. One, we need to make sure that we grow our economy. And number two, we want to make sure that we have a workforce that's diverse, that have the skills necessary to make sure that they take the advantage opportunity that we're providing for them. Number three, we have to create build a safe, working community. Really, that's a service for us in terms of what we need to do. In terms of the other issues around, as the chair of the housing, we have to create the opportunity to house all Oregonians, and particularly if we want to house people who are working class and working Oregonians and people who are going to move to the state, we have to create the opportunity to build more housing production. That's really the key elements of success, while also addressing education, higher education, pre-K, we heard this morning. All of these issues will be around ensuring that we grow the economy. That's really the essence for me.
Thank you, thank you. Senator Bonham, to you.
It's an interesting word, excited, isn't it? It could take us in many different directions. I heard from entrepreneurs this morning what the entrepreneurial spirit is here in Oregon. It's resiliency, it's determination, it's dedication, and it's dynamic because you have to overcome all the obstacles that the state throws at you. I mean, how many times do we have to hear that at this summit before we decide to go in a different direction? The definition of insanity. Are we going to continue to do the same thing and expect a different result? Like we have tremendous natural resources, whether it's our forest industry's products or our people. Like we have tremendous resources here in Oregon, and are we going to tap that and unleash that, or are we going to continue to find a way to hold it under our foot and hold it back, or are we going to partner? Could you imagine an Oregon where the government, the legislative leadership, the executive leadership, where our governor joined with business and said, we want to be the greatest state in the nation in terms of our business friendliness, where we rank right now at 48th. I have a tremendous amount of excitement about this topic, but I think the future right now is a little bit cloudy as the day is outside.
Thank you. A good reminder. Thank you. Yes. Good reminder we should be working together. So, if you look to the 2025 legislature, and if you have one shot, one opportunity, what can be done to take advantage of economic growth? What can the legislature do to take advantage of these economic growth opportunities? And I'll start with Senator Bonham.
Awesome. I will tell you, going into 2025, I think there is cause for optimism, and yet simultaneously cautious optimism. 2023 was a disaster of a session. We had the longest walkout in the history of Oregon, ended the current political terms of 10 sitting Republican senators, and then in 24 we had a tremendous session where we came together. Was it because we had walked out and the threat of a walkout remained, or was it because we learned a lesson? Are we going to come into 2025 with a desire to work together, with a policy agenda that's driven based on what Oregonians need, or will it continue to be a partisan political agenda? That remains to be seen, but there is tremendous opportunity in front of us to have a very positive impact on the state of Oregon and the future of the state of Oregon. Again, it's in our hands, it's within our grasp. I will say a couple things. The state of Oregon, 10 years ago, the 13-15 biennial budget was $62 billion. We're projected to be over $135 billion. That's a lot of new money in just a short 12 years. We are looking at resources. Had a conversation with the governor's office that we need more money for transportation, we need more money for education, but I think we heard loud and clear today that we're already burdened with taxes. I don't think we should be looking for new revenue sources. I think we need to live within our means, just as Oregonians are having to do today.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Jama, to you.
Well, I think for me, one thing that I definitely agree with Senator Bonham is that, we need to work together. We have to really create a space where we, as legislators, come together and make sure that we take care of the Oregonians' issues. Oregonians expect us to be working together, and that means that we have to put Oregon first before we do other issues forward. For me, the coming 2025 session, I think there's a couple of things that we need to address. One is transportation. Infrastructure building, transportation will be key elements for us to have an economy that's working for Oregonians. Number two, education. Education is, as I said earlier, is a foundation for everything. We need to have the workforce development also as well. If we don't have the workforce development, take care of it, and we don't have the skills, folks who are diverse, who come from different backgrounds. I personally represented one of the most diverse districts in our state, and has both urban and rural area issues. So for me, there is absolutely necessity to take care of the transportation, education, healthcare. Those are all intertwined with the business environment that we need to create to make sure that we have all Oregonians benefiting from our economy.
Thank you. Representative Drazan.
Thank you. I look at this upcoming session, and I think we have an opportunity to not do business as usual. I mean, today at the summit, you're going to hear from the presiding officers of the House and the Senate, 2 Democrats. You're going to hear from the governor, another Democrat. You're going to hear from the people that are leading the transportation effort, 2 Democrats. And I will call on my colleagues across the aisle, who you will hear from individually and not with Republican colleagues like you're having today with us. I would encourage them to look at this crisis that we face right now in the state, transportation, housing, homelessness, and to reject business as usual, and to not assume that the only response to $1.7 billion in issues at ODOT that doesn't even account for building projects, but just covering their standard operating costs. You can't look at that and just say we're going to raise taxes again. It's an opportunity to say we have to stop what we've been doing. We have an opportunity to reshape, restructure, and approach these challenges differently. And I am optimistic that that's possible. I'm irrationally optimistic that that's possible. I'm hopeful that that's possible. I also am a pragmatist, and I recognize that you have supermajorities now in the House and the Senate, and there's no reason to ask Republicans to be a part of that conversation other than to just have us come along for the final vote. I hope that's not how it goes. I hope that we can talk about accountability at ODOT. I hope that we can talk about where we're spending our money and why, and whether or not the priorities from 20 years ago should still be the priorities today. And I'm taking a wait-and-see approach, but I'm grateful to be here today. I'm grateful to serve with all of you and our other colleagues in the legislature, but I think this needs to be an inflection point, and we need to say, let's not just adopt business as usual.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll build a little bit on Representative-elect Drazan's statements. Has anyone here read the book Recoding America by Jen Pahlka? Anybody? Okay, a few of us. So Jen Pahlka has a quote. She says, "We have a crisis of state capacity that underpins all the others." And what she means by that is our government is not functioning effectively. This is true at the national level, it's true at the state level. And the reason I like this conversation and think it's so important is because whether you believe in big government or small government, whether you agree or disagree on a specific program, everyone should agree that we need an effective government. We need an efficient government. There's been a work group that's been meeting for the last 8 or 9 months, bipartisan, focused on government oversight, effectiveness, and accountability. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there for bipartisan collaborative work aimed at making government work better. It's not sexy. Audits are not sexy. Implementation monitoring is not sexy, but it's really, really important for all the issues that we've talked about and heard about all morning. So I'm optimistic that we can work together on that front. And I do think Governor Kotek has had that same stance as governor. So I think there's a potential alignment between both parties, the legislative branch and the executive branch, to focus on that core problem of making government work better and deliver better results for people.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're running out of time here, folks, so I'm going to do speed round. And because there was a theme going on, and I thought to put more light on that, favorite food or beverage from Oregon? Representative Drazan.
I love the cheese from TMK Creamery in my local district.
Bonham.
I'll just jump in. The peppered beef jerky from Old Trapper is by far the greatest thing that's ever been.
Hot take.
Senator.
I will follow up with the beef jerky. That's really awesome. I love it's come from someone.
See, working together right here, you guys saw it.
Yes.
I'll go with Willamette Valley Pinot Noir.
All right, and I'm excellent choices, everyone. I'm going to land on, of course, Tillamook cheese, best cheese in the world. You heard it here first.
Good choice.
Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.